All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry if I look like the living dead because I slept through an alarm. Took a nap before show, slept through the alarm, and now the brain is, it is not firing on all cylinders. But hey, there's work that's got to be done. We got a show to do, and so we'll get into it. And I got Sam and Trish Britton with me here from Missouri Liberty Radio, and we're going to kind of do a year in review type of thing. So that's how we're going to roll. Nobody's in the in the live chat right now, which doesn't matter because, like I said, I moved this up 4.5 hours, so it's all good. Anyway, let me start the recording, and then we will continue from there.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, and we're back with another edition where liberty lovers unite, a podcast called the Missouri Liberty Report. So my thanks to all of you who download, watch the live stream, however you get the show. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you. And some of those people that I always appreciate are folks who carry this show on a weekly basis. Give me my first spot in radio and on their internet network. So very thankful for these two, Sam and Trish Britton from Missouri Liberty Radio. Sam and Trish, how are you today?
We're really doing good.
Doing good. The world's still turning and we're still walking.
There you go. Okay. Well, you're doing better than me.
Still walk.
Yeah, you're doing better than me because you guys are thinking like you're supposed to be, and I might be stretching out a little bit today. Anywho, so basically, folks, what we're doing today. This is going to be, this is kind of like a first time for me. A year in review. I've never done one of these before, but I told Sam and Trish, we're just going to do a year in review on things that we saw happen that were A, really dumb, or B, maybe really good. But things that government and agencies and the like that, maybe tried to throw freedom under the bus and then somebody else came. Maybe we find a hero, talk about a hero that said, hey, is either making an attempt to pull us out from underneath the wheels or pulled us out from underneath the wheels of the government bus, so to speak. So I guess, Sam and Trish, let me ask you first. If you wanted to describe the year just like so for just your station, your network only. And if you wanted to talk and you wanted to describe how things went with your network this year, how would you say things went as far as just between the two of you, the network, the station, all that? How do you kind of wrap that up and say this is the kind of year that we had?
Well, it wasn't just 1 year. It's been gradually ramping up. I think back in 2021, I think COVID was the thing that really pushed us into the.
Yeah, and first of all, I want to remind everybody that everything government touches turns to crap.
There's that.
That's the thing you got to keep in mind all the time.
Right, but ever since then, gradually, more and more people, as things continue to deteriorate, more and more people are starting to come around and understand that things are not as they seem. And of course, their crescendo so far up to this point was you getting connected with Patrick and then me getting connected with Patrick courtesy of you, and you guys all working with me and getting interviews regarding people here in Missouri and that kind of thing, getting those scheduled. So that's been a new turning point in what we've been doing here. Just like in your case, I mean, I think this has been a good year for all of us. You, Trish and I, we've all just been kind of riding this horse together, and your podcast, the Missouri Liberty Report, has been spearheading it all. and now look where we are now, and it only looks to get better as we move into 2023. I don't know how the year is going to come out.
Yeah.
The year could be a total
Waste of time.
disaster, but at least as far as trying to get out information and stuff like that, I think particularly when it comes to state issues, I think has a lot of promise. And so I have to say, I think this has all kind of been an experience for all of us, you, Trish, and I included, just all of us together here. And now we just got to ride this wave to fruition and really try to do what we can to help our state. I mean, as you've said, and I've said the same thing, the federal government's pretty much a lost cause, so we're going to have to start working on this.
I think we ought to forget about Washington, D.C. has ever existed.
Yeah. I
think we ought to forget about it.
Well, you can't forget about it because they'll still attempt to try to flex their muscle. However,
I understand that.
As far as trying to influence it, I think it's a far more hostile environment. Where at least here in the state, here in the state of Missouri, at least we got a chance to try and turn things around. So, anyway, does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, it has been it's been an interesting year to see just the change. I mean, again, here locally, we got to do a meeting in last month and had some local folks join in with our, state rep and state senator and things like that, and had a good informative meeting and something to build on as far as trying to inform folks, plus hopefully get them involved in taking back the state of Missouri and making it a much more free and open place to live. And when I mean open, I don't mean open for socialism. I mean open for people to make their choices, to make their own choices, to choose how they want to live without some idiot intervening and saying, well, you're not as smart as we are, let us handle this, because we know how that works out. But yeah. It was interesting. Some of the new guests that we've had, things of that nature, it's something that I didn't quite foresee going as well as it did. You go back 8-9 months ago, I didn't see this happening. I was like,
no way.
I'm going to keep doing what I do and hopefully reach more audience and go from there. I did not plan on it being to this level, and actually it's quite nice. It's a good feeling to know that what you're doing resonates with people, and in the case what you and Trish did, during COVID for community businesses and things like that, that's brought people around too. Because now, see, that's the thing. That's the unfortunate thing, but I guess a silver lining, Sam and Trish, is that I think a lot of people around here think that we're kooky and we're crazy and maybe we just don't know what we're talking about all the time. Then COVID hits, and then we don't look so dumb, do we? And it makes...
I don't care what they call me. They can call me anything they want to. But don't mean it's true, and don't mean it is that way.
Yeah.
Right, but it is nice because now... you've kind of been vindicated a little bit to say, hey, we don't say this to be shocking and to be controversial. We're saying this because we've done all this research. We've seen all these things. It's out there. You just have to look, and you have to be able to come to a conclusion to yourself that, hey, I'm not crazy for feeling this way. Things are really screwed up right now. And it's nice. Right. It's nice to be vindicated to where people hear your message now and go, okay, well, they've been right on all this other stuff. Now what's coming? And it kind of makes them want to gain that knowledge more. And so now they have, and what's even better is you're local. You're local to them. They know you. They can see you walking through town, maybe see you in a store or restaurant. You're up close and personal, so they can literally talk to someone face to face, and not, I have to call somebody on a station or whatever that's 2 hours away from me. You guys live right here. And
Yeah.
I think that's also very important. Um, when we're trying to wake people up, of course, the ones that are normally easiest to wake up are the ones close to you, but not all the time. Um,
Yeah.
No.
so if you were going to pick, because I mean, COVID, yeah, we're still dealing with stupid from COVID. But if you were going
Yeah.
if you were going to pick another topic that you would think is big for this year, if you were going to pick maybe one or two things, what would those things be, Sam and Trish? Because I can think of a lot of stuff, but if there were topics that really resonated with you this year in particular, what would those things be?
Well, um, well, I learned one thing. The difference between the truth and a conspiracy is a year. In other words, we were conspiracy theorists about a year ago. Now, the truth has come out in so many different ways. The difference is a year.
Yeah, and that's really true. I mean, that's the first thing they always do is because the term conspiracy theorist, of course, is
a CIA.
it's just a showstopper. It's a CIA term. It's a way to shut you down, so you spend all your time trying to defend yourself against the charges rather than talking about the issue. Well, as we always say, I think now, if anything, the CIA, as well as so many of these other alphabet agencies, are becoming more and more discredited with the way things are going. And now you've got the World Economic Forum in the picture, and that's one that's really come out. I mean, if somebody would have said 4 or 5 years ago that eventually it was going to be promoted for you to eat bugs as a source of protein as opposed to meat 5 years ago, people would have said we were absolutely nuts. Trish and I, as well as a few other people, knew this was coming a long time ago. And if you could have looked around on YouTube, you can actually find promotions for that. And they were around. They've been around as long as some of them have been around as long as 2013, 2014. It's just that it didn't come out into the mainstream until really this year, maybe part of last year and this year, but mostly this year. Because now things have shifted away from COVID and now have shifted over into post-COVID, and now the truth is starting to come out about what COVID was really all about as opposed to what we were told. And it was just a stepping stone to get these agendas going, and that's exactly what has happened. And now people are starting to find out that, hey, them guys were really right, about all this stuff. And so, it's that's really, I think the way this really came out, I think, is the situation where we had to get through COVID first, and then once we got through that, and things started shifting, then we started getting into the agendas. Now we're in the agenda phase. They're coming out of the woodwork, telling us what the agendas are, and they seem to think that they've got everything under control to the point where they can come out and just reveal it all, and it's like, okay, what you going to do about it? And so this is where people are going to have to get creative to fight against it. And I think on the state agendas, where I think Patrick is definitely onto something, and we've gotten good vibes out of that since we've teamed up with Missouri Freedom Initiative. And by the way, speaking of which, on Sunday night on my own show, I'm going to be playing an interview with a lady by the name of Catherine Austin Fitz. She was on with a guy by the name of Greg Hunter, who does a show called USA Watchdog. And the reason I bring this up is because she, too, is saying the exact same thing, John, that we're all saying. Work at the state level. Quit fooling around with Washington.
Yeah, it's not our house.
Yeah, and by the way, for those who don't know who Catherine Austin Fitz is, she used to be Secretary of Housing under Bush Jr. when he was when he was president. She was under the Bush administration. The only difference is she came out with her head screwed on straight as opposed to everybody else. And now she's trying to get everybody under the idea of working through the states as well. So, when you have somebody that notable who's been around, she's been in a lot of government offices before she started going out on her own, doing what she's doing now. When you got her saying it, that even adds more weight to the fact that all of us are out here, we're on to something. And if nothing else, what I hope comes out of this is that Missouri can lead the way, and we can all lead the way in getting the message out of freedom, and also the message out as far as what's going on within the state through your show, and then your show obviously being aired over here on Missouri Liberty Radio, and then of course on my audience, trying to get my audience up to speed. And the whole idea in me bringing this stuff out on my own broadcast is hopefully people in other states that listen to my broadcast can pick up on what we're doing in Missouri and try to influence their own legislature. And so that's really what I hope comes out of it. Now, if people live in places like California or Illinois or New York,
good luck.
Good luck. But,
yeah.
We still have a fighting chance. And I think if we play our cards right, we could really have an impact, I hope.
Yeah, I've come to, I guess, a point in my life, guys, where I look at two ways. You either get your state right, and if that, maybe it's not going to be perfect. I mean, you're never going to get just perfection out of this whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's either that.
Man is flawed.
Yeah, it's either that or you start thinking about a national divorce. I mean, really, that's the two options that they've left to us. Because people have chosen to, try to reason with, well, let's just say tyrants, monsters. Like I said, there's one person up there. So when you got that many people in D.C. and there's one name that always springs to mind who really, truly, the way he votes on something is by the Constitution or just being moral, is Thomas Massey. When you can depend on only one of them to be a guiding light to the principles we're supposed to be based on, good luck changing that environment. And so it comes down to, okay, you can make way more of an impact in your state because if you show up with a group of people, believe me, they take notice. Or you get, the only other thing left is national divorce, and people are going to scoff at that, I know. They thought, why would we want to break away from the union? Well, why would you want to stick around? It's like being it's like being married to a abusive spouse, and you just like, well, it's fine, no big deal, just hang around. Like, no, it's not okay.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't have to stick around.
How much do you enjoy getting kicked in the nuts by the abusive spouse?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to constantly have the frying pan boogie done on their forehead? Because you simply want to be left alone, and they want to be up in your face, and you're like, can I have a minute of peace? And they're like, clang, I'm back. And you're like, that's not a moment of peace, you jackass. I want to be left alone. And people still scoff at it, but as some of these very liberty-minded folks out there, even people who maybe aren't necessarily so liberty-minded, are willing to state that within the next 5+ years that we're probably going to see some states divorce themselves from the union. They're all saying that, this is a good possibility. I'm telling you folks, not you and Sam and Trish, I don't have to tell you nothing. But the other folks out there, I would heed what these people say. I would listen to them because they're right on an awful lot of things. And, and it's something that I constantly have in the back of my head. And I know that sometimes it turns people off, but tough. Because if you want to be free and you want to live and again, make your own choices, keep more of your money, all those things, then what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and wallow in the mud with everybody else?
Good enough, they will decide that is the better option. When their ox gets gored enough.
Basically, John, when they get hungry enough because the government has shut down all the farms, when they have no heat in their home because the government has curtailed fuel supplies and everything to the point where they're darn near freezing to death, then they'll understand what was at stake. And I hope we don't have to get there first.
You know what?
Is that their entrance into the Church of the Gored Ox?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's one of those things. You would hope by now that, again, we're so there's so many people that are so reactive instead of proactive. And you hope that it's not the case that they have to literally, this monstrosity is like stomping through their, right through their town like Godzilla through Tokyo before they go, Godzilla, or whatever. They see him coming in the distance, and they're like, hey, can we push the island out in the water farther and get away from this creature that's approaching us? Or can we just, wall off our entire state so the monster can't get in? I mean, which way are you going to do it? And again, I know this idea people think is nutty or loony. I don't care. If who in their right mind, besides those who worship at the feet of tyrants, can look at government and go, yep, that's somebody I want to hang out with? Like, if you had a choice and you're like, okay, well, you got a choice. You can hang out with your friends or you can hang out with these guys from D.C. Hardly anybody, if they're being honest, is going to go, oh, I want to hang out with the politicians from D.C. because anything you eat or drink when you're around them, you're going to throw it back up because those people are literally going to make you sick to your stomach. You can't look at that place and go, I feel healthy right now. No, when you look at them, you feel sick to your stomach. So at some point, you got to break away and say, okay, well, I want to make sure that everybody else in my state understands that if you hang out with these people and you try to affect change, there's two good possibilities. A, you're going to turn into one of those people that you're fighting, or B, you're going to get run over. So how about you just not go up there and waste all that time and energy trying to convince tyrants who are drunk with power to give up a little bit of that power. I mean,
I think here's one thing, John, that we need to keep in mind out of all this. I don't think people understand how blessed we are in this country to be divided up in states as opposed to the way most nations are. We were conceived as 50 different small republics, and as such, if we were operating the way we were supposed to, the states would be singing the song as opposed to the federal government. I mean, it's just like right here, probably one of the most notoriously aggravating things I've seen recently was the state of Texas trying to seek permission from the federal government to use fuel oil to power their electric grid down there during this past cold snap because the renewables weren't keeping up. And I'm thinking, since when does the creator ask permission from the created?
And grovel at their feet.
And then grovel at their feet. That just really aggravated me. The state legislators and the governors of these states need to stand up and start acting like what they're supposed to be. And I'm telling you, where this is going to wind up going, if we don't get our crap together, we're going to wind up like what they're doing over in England right now. They're currently experimenting over there with something called 15-minute cities. These are cities in which you will be restricted to being able to go no more than 15 minutes from your home in any direction. In other words, they want to curtail your travel to the point where you don't go beyond a certain point as far as all your shopping and everything else. I think part of our problem that we run into, John, is that I don't think a lot of us really stop to think about what freedom truly is. I mean, we take so much for granted. I mean, we take everything for granted. I mean, you just jump in your car and you go anywhere you want to go, and you don't think anything about it. You don't think about the fact that someday you could jump in your car and go somewhere and suddenly get yourself arrested because you drove too far out of your zone. That's where this is going. This is just one of many things that they're trying to do to curtail our ability to be mobile, to curtail our ability to eat the foods we want to eat, to curtail our ability to use the energy that we want, that we're willing to pay for. This is where your carbon credits come in. This is, we just take for granted. I mean, you decide you want to go do the laundry any time of your day or whatever, and you go and do your laundry, or you do whatever it is around your house you want to do. Someday that may not be the case. You may be limited to things that you want to do whenever the state says you can do them. And this is where we're headed. And this is the thing I don't think people understand. In other words, what we're facing here, if we don't get our heads out of our rear ends and the states start acting like independent states, we could wind up in a situation where we will be totally micromanaged to the point where our decisions won't be our own. We won't have any decision-making process. We'll be told what we're to do from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. So basically, your life will not be your own. Your life will be controlled by somebody else in everything that you do. And that's where we're headed, and this is what we're trying to fight off. This is openly what the World Economic Forum is calling for. This is what the UN is calling for.
They're just birds of the same feather.
Oh, they are. Yeah, it's just two
heads of the same coin.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the point being is that I think one of the things we have to do is start just stepping back for a minute and thinking about all the things that we do in our life that we just do whenever we feel like it. I mean, obviously there are responsibilities. When you got to go out and make a living, you have to be at that job on time if you're going to make a living. So you give of your time in exchange for money that pays your bills and pays your expenses. But once you're done with that job, the rest of your time is yours, and you do with it as you see fit. Well, that's not going to be the case if we keep going the way we're going. Your time will not be yours at all in any place, job, home, or otherwise.
It'll be a part of the collective.
Yeah, and that's where we're headed. And that's the thing that people have got to somehow get their heads around, is that their life will no longer be their own. They will be part of a collective.
That's all there will be, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we're headed. And so this is why we're taking such a big step, certainly here in the state of Missouri, as far as trying to preserve the liberties and the freedoms that we come to know and cherish so that we don't lose them. Is it going to be an uphill fight? Yeah, it is. In fact, it's one of the things I proposed to Bill Eigel when I interviewed him was the idea of all these states, Tennessee, Missouri, and Iowa, and South Dakota, and I may be leaving some out, but that's just an example. And that is a coalition of states, a united front of states that are committed to liberty and freedom, because if just one state tries to do it, it's going to be much harder for just one state alone to do it than it will be if a sizable amount of these states stand up and say, hey, we're not playing this game, Washington. I mean, I guarantee you, if we had just 7 states out of the union alone standing up and saying we're not playing this game, somebody'd sit up and take notice there in D.C.
Yeah, and again, they how the it would be interesting to see the reaction again if you get, because I have seen maps of proposed where I don't know if it's people in states talking about this or what. So you see Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa. I don't remember how many. I think maybe Tennessee and Kentucky. It was basically south to north, except for Minnesota, Illinois. I don't remember if the Dakotas are in there. Anyway, but they were saying these states could form a coalition and just break away. So you would almost literally split the country in two, except for the very northern states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. We could literally almost cut the state in half now, or cut the country in half. Now, here's the thing: I don't think that these states would impose bans on people traveling from east to west. So if you had tractor trailer traffic or whatever, people shipping goods, across state lines, I don't think they're going to say anything about that. But if the feds want to come through, then it's going to have to be done in such a way where you have the sheriffs actively out watching them and saying, okay, you can pass through, but other than that, you ain't doing nothing. Or if you want to get here that bad, jump on a plane and fly over us. Whatever way, it would be an interesting time or an interesting thing because, again, if you split the country down the middle, the feds are looking at that. We get called flyover country. Well, maybe that's a good thing. If the feds want to go somewhere they can't drive through, they're going to literally have to fly over us. If they want to do something out in Colorado, well, fly over us then. You're not driving your federal cars across our state, across our interstates, and tearing up the roads. You can just fly over the top. We don't care. You know what? I'm fine if the feds want to consider us, quote unquote, flyover country. Good. Bye. Fly right over us. See if we care. If we don't ever have to see your ugly mugs again, nothing would please us more. I mean, let's be honest. So maybe it's a good thing that they consider us flyover country, that we're just deemed not good enough for them. Okay, fine. We'll pull out of the union. And, you take 6 states and all that money that the states feed the feds every year goes away. How much power does the federal government lose if 6 states worth of tax revenue goes out the window? That does something to...
That's what it's going to have to take.
Yeah.
I think that's the case. I think another thing we're going to have to keep in mind, too, it's not as simple as just pulling out of the union. We're getting entangled. And this is the thing that aggravates me. The states should be raising more of a fuss, let alone the people. It's bad enough the people as a whole don't raise a fuss the way they should. But like, for example, all these things, like, for example, these treaties, for example, that we get sucked into, like with the World Health Organization and all that kind of stuff. When they sign these treaties and get us into these treaties, I resent the hell out of that because my attitude is, first of all, I wasn't consulted. My signature isn't on that treaty, so therefore go pee up a rope and see how far it goes because I want nothing to do with your contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, again...
Public health is a fiction anyway.
Yeah.
It is...
Go ahead, John.
It is... it's very concerning because here's the way we get treated. We get treated as if when we're born that even though, they put your footprint or whatever on a birth certificate, they act like that you literally is like taking a thumbprint and signing a document. That you...
Well, it's worse than that.
We're
chattel.
Well, yeah, but it's one of those things like as soon as you're born, they treat you like you signed on for this. Just because you came out of the birth canal, you signed on for all this. No, because I didn't get to read the contract.
That's right.
No one sat next to me in the in the nursery in the hospital and read me the contract, and then my little baby brain went, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And I stuck my foot out, and they put some ink on it. I put my footprint on a that doesn't happen. But that's how we're treated. We're treated as if everyone born into this country, or maybe someone who immigrates to this country that wants to be, a naturalized citizen, just thinks that all this stuff is just the bee's knees, and nothing could be further from the truth. And yeah, like you said, Trish, treated like cattle. They just
we're chattel. We're chattel slaves. because of the birth certificate and all that kind of.
Yeah, and that's where they get us. That's where I think Charlie Stewart, who's a gentleman we air here on Missouri Liberty Radio, he's on to something with that birth certificate issue. In fact, we're going to be doing a live show with him on Sunday. We're trying to get all the logistics worked out, but one of the things we're going to talk about is this whole issue of how to, if you didn't know any better and you got married and brought the state in as a third party in your marriage, how to get out of that without having to go through all the business of filing for a divorce and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be an interesting show. When we get that out, I'll probably replay it on one of my shows at some point when that show is recorded. And but I mean, it's very, very important because, see, most people don't stop to think about, you know, the contracts that we entered into willingly in this case, that we didn't have any knowledge of what we were getting into. I mean, like, for example, John, you know, prior to you learning all this stuff that you've learned over the past several years, if somebody would ever told you that going and getting married and getting a marriage license was making the state a third party in your relationship, if somebody were to tell you that back then, you either would have told them they were crazy or you would never have done it because you wouldn't want the state as the third party in your relationship. Well, the problem with it is that nobody tells you that when you go through this whole business with the marriage license and then, of course, the birth certificates and all that kind of stuff. And so we just voluntarily go along with this stuff. And then what most people don't understand is that when you do this stuff, the birth certificates, one thing, the birth certificates alone, that makes each and every one of us that are born here collateral for the debt, because they use all those entries in those birth certificates as a means of warehousing everybody for collateral on the debt. And see, this is how we wind up unwittingly getting into these contracts, because, you know, it's not like a real contract where you can sit down and read the licensing agreement and you can say, okay, I don't like this licensing agreement, so I'll get out of it. No, it doesn't work that way. It's only since the invention of the internet, where we could really search this stuff out without having to go to some big library somewhere, that we were able to learn all this stuff and finally start to figure out what we've entered into unwittingly, whether we know it or not. And so, you know, that's the area in which we have
have we sort of straight off our year in review?
Well,
it's fine. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing. If we're going to take one thing away from all of that, everything that we just said, here's a simple reminder. When we're talking about getting involved in your state to make yourself more free, how we got here on a lot of stuff is a lot of people, here's another thing, got involved at the federal level and thought thought everything that we're talking about was a good idea. They invited government in. And now we're trying to go to our state and get government out. But a lot of this stuff was enacted by Joe Blow down the street somewhere, or some political action committee or something decided they thought it would be a good idea to get government involved. That's the worst part of this. Sometimes we like to say that government just imposes all these things. There's a lot of people in this country who actively ask for this kind of stupidity. And then the problem is they get the rest of us involved with it involuntarily because they act like they're speaking for everyone when they're actually not.
Well, there's a perfect case in that, John. If people were to study how we wound up with marriage licenses, because prior to the Civil War, we didn't have marriage licenses. Marriage licenses are really a Johnny-come-lately thing. The marriage was entered, just documented in the front of the family Bible, and that was it. Where the marriage license came in was, it came up around that time, because there was a lot more racism around that time than there is now. But it came up under the guise of tracking interracial marriage, blacks marrying whites.
Yep.
And there were a lot of people at the time that went along with it because they felt that should be tracked. Well, you know, guess what? Be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. Because now the marriage license has now become the marriage license went kind of like the income tax. It started out with a certain few, and then wound up eventually being accepted by everybody. And this is why you have to be careful what you ask when you ask government to come up with some new program. You got to be careful what you're asking for, because you just might get a whole lot more than what you bargained for.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what happened here with the marriage license. And the marriage license, at that point, you are, that's how we got into a situation where the state then becomes third party in relationships. And if you want any evidence of that, just look at people who are married through a marriage license versus the ones who don't have the marriage license. And I won't get into details because I don't have permission from the individual in question to bring up his name. But Trish and I know of an individual who does not have a marriage license. When he went through the whole mess with the state harassing him over his beliefs and different things like that, they went after him, but they did not go after his children
Or his wife.
Because of the fact that in the state's eyes, they weren't legally married. They were just living together. But according to Scripture, they were married. But see, once you get the marriage license, now you're legally married in the eyes of the state, and the state will then go after both parties at that point in a given situation.
Yeah, it just, again, be careful what you ask for. You might just, you might just get it. I just had a subject spring to mind, but it's gone just like half my memory. Whew, there it went. Okay, well, I'd like to bring something up, and I just want to talk about one thing, and that is, the year in review thing. I want to just, again, I keep stressing this, but we're talking about getting involved at the state level. I just want to, impress upon people that, hey, it really is easy. I am not a Missouri state law scholar. I am not an expert in any way. But it is super easy to go to Jeff City, walk the halls of the Capitol, and speak to representatives and senators. I'm just telling you, folks, you're going to be shocked at how easy it really is to do that kind of thing. And I just want to impress upon people. Yeah, emails, phone calls are great. Go to Jeff City, make your voice heard. It is way more impactful than going to the ballot box in November and voting from some turd, or voting for some turd up in D.C. who really doesn't care about you. And all you did was you chose, more than likely, unless you're super lucky, you chose your next tyrant that will represent you in D.C. And what they mean, when I mean represent you, I mean represent you in the way that helps them the most. So if it's politically expedient for them to represent you, then they will. But if it's not politically expedient to represent you because it's the best for their career as a politician, then they're going to do that. They're going to do what's ever in their own self-interest. And I'm pretty sure that we do not elect people. Well, I take that. I should reword that. We're not supposed to be electing people because we want people who look out for their own self-interest over the people that they're supposed to represent. That's not the way that's supposed to work. But it happens an awful lot. And we have plenty of rhinos in Jefferson City to see that that's just plain as day. Like Grant says, like Comrade Blunt. That's a good... I like that. No longer is he Roy
Yeah.
Blunt. He's Comrade Blunt. Now,
Comrade, yeah.
Thomas Massey had an interesting post the other day. I don't know if I saw it on Twitter or Facebook. But he's like, if you want to see an argument against term limits in D.C., he's like, you got people like Blunt and those guys that are leaving office. Look at the way they voted. He's like, so even if they're term limited, when they're leaving, doesn't mean they're going to stick to their guns. They're going to vote the way they want.
In fact, John, if they're leaving,
it's going to be worse.
they'll do worse.
Yeah.
Because they have nothing to fear. They're not going to be reelected again. So what do they have to fear? We're actually, it's in a way, it's setting ourselves up for even a worse problem. I mean, the problem's bad enough as it is already, but it's setting up for worse problems is what I'm saying. Because they don't have anything to fear when they're term limited out. So.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of fell into the term limit argument, but lately that's been because Jesse Root's like, dude, you don't want term limits. And I'm like, are you sure you don't want term limits? I mean, that sounds pretty good, but he's like, seriously, you don't want them. And when I step back and I look, I'm like, he's kind of right. He's kind of right that maybe term limits aren't the solution here most of the time. It's you having to vote. Well, doing your research and electing those who will stand up for you. Not maybe this is one way of looking at it. Maybe term limits are a lazy solution. So if you want to look at it that way, I'm not saying everyone's lazy, but there are a lot of people who don't educate themselves. So if you have term limits and the guy's awful, then it's like people don't fight as hard because they're like, oh, in a few sessions he'll be gone. Yeah, but what's he doing the whole time he's in there? And again, if they know they have term limits, when they're leaving, they'll just be extra tyranny. It's a word I just made up. Extra tyranny. And what are you going to do to them? Nothing. You're not going to do nothing. You can do nothing.
Tyrannical.
Yeah, you're right. I like to make my own words up because I'm too dumb to think of the right words.
One of the things I want to clarify on this, we're not saying what we have now is correct. I mean, it's got its problems too, so I don't want to make it sound like we're in favor of people just staying up there a lifetime. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that term limits is not the magic bullet that everybody thinks that it is.
Well, yeah, and Grant just made a good point. He said it really won't be fixed until reps and senators can be recalled by the district that voted them in. That's a good point, too. Here in Missouri, we kind of need recall. If, you get a plocker or a rodent or crab cakes or whoever's in there, and they're really, they think they're conservative, but they're not. And you just go, oh, well, you kind of, lied so much that your eyes turned brown. We're going to go ahead and recall you, and we'll put somebody else in there who acts not like a horse is behind, but, does what they're supposed to do. That would be nice for recall here in the state. Even just governor, reps, senators, whatever, that we can recall them at any time when they're not upholding the will of the people. That's a good point. Again, but that is a challenge trying to get. I mean, the good ones will be like, sure, like recall sounds great, but you got a lot of rhinos and Democrats in the state. It would be really hard. That would have to be, I guess, a ballot initiative to pass to get it built into where you can recall, because I don't think we have enough reps and senators who would go along with a recall piece of legislation here in the state, because they'd be afraid that, they're on to us. And like, yeah, we kind of freaking are on to you, you horses behind. But again, this is the great thing about Missouri. We don't have to be like New Hampshire and recruit people. We got a lot of good people in the state that like their freedom. And again, that prepared homestead meeting that I went to a couple weeks ago was just such a cool thing to see. and be a part of, because super nice people, super helpful people, and they have their own kind of community, but it isn't. Hey, we're gonna. It's not like your first Thanksgiving. Hey, we're gonna pull our food together like some kind of socialist thing. They're there for each other, but they're not intrusive. They mind their own business. But if someone needs help, they step in and help, and that's I think the way the original community what was and should be. Not, hey, let me go over here and get Mike's business real quick. No, it was, oh, you need help? All right, I'll be over there in a couple hours. I'll be there in a couple minutes to help you, without being intrusive, without being nosy, just helping and then going along your way, and then you get that in return at some point. So that's the great thing about this state, is there are, if you took the amount of freedom lovers in this state and compared that even next door in Illinois, I think there'd be a big difference in population of people who actually want government to leave them the hell alone. Trying to think. Well, since we're talking about this stuff this year, I've got about 5.5 minutes, and I have to cut, and then we can go on. But again, the three most popular bills this year being blocked by Plocker and not seeing the light of day. That's something else as a year in review. That's something that's got to be remedied. And then again, also with the year in review type thing going on, that ballot initiative they tried to cram through, that with Amendment 3 passing, that the ballot initiative, if that would have went through both houses to the governor's desk and he signed that into law, the only ballot initiatives we would get in Missouri from then on out would be like Amendment 3, where people were getting paid to get signatures, and then you had basically 3 areas of the state passing something for everyone. And they would have been like, that's the only ballot initiatives we would have had. And then a small majority would have been able to sit there and amend the Constitution willy-nilly and making the state way worse. So, yeah, as far as the House side goes, I mean, we got our problems in the Senate too, but the House side, good Lord, do we have some work to do. And, again, with the news story coming out that state reps, at least on the House side, are being told, well, so far that's the word, if you post how you voted on social media, you'll be pulled from committees. And I'm just sitting here thinking, well, what the hell right do you have to tell people, you can't tell your constituents how you voted on something? Now, again, some of them got upset because one guy just posted the whole page. Now, that's the screwed up thing. He pulled it from the Missouri House of Representatives website. He just screenshotted it and then shared it, and they got upset. Well, if you're doing the right thing and you're voting the way you're supposed to be voting and the way your constituents want you to vote, you won't get in any trouble. If you're doing the will of the people, you won't get in trouble. Clearly, they've got things to hide. A lot. Because, you can go on, you can look on their voting records on certain sites, and you can see who's actually a conservative and who's playing pretend and being a rhino or a little mini tyrant. So that was interesting too, and we haven't. As far as I know, I don't know. I haven't heard anything out of Patrick in like 2+ weeks. I don't know what's going on. I haven't heard any updates on, if there was anything from Patterson and Plocker's office on, yes, we did this, or no, it's taken out of context, or whatever. I'd like to know what their response to this is, because I haven't seen it. It was just the Gateway Pundit posted the article, and then I haven't seen a rebuttal or anything on it after that. But Yeah, if Plocker did this, if this was him or was it Patterson, who knows right now. But if Plocker did this, that just adds to his wall of shame because 3 most popular bills plus then this all in this year. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I don't think I have to go very far out on that limb, that he is looking to go up the political ladder. He's going to go from the state up to the federal level. I mean, when these guys start acting like this, they got plans. They got big plans. Yeah. And, you know, as George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And you and I are not in the big club. And it's the big club that he beats you over the head with, you know. But, again, I haven't heard anything else. I don't know everything that's going on. But would I put it past these two jokers? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put anything past them as far as that goes. I'm just going to finish up this minute, guys, and then I'll let you talk. I know I'm just taking over here, but I just want to clip and not have to cut anybody off mid-sentence.
No, I know what you're saying.
But yeah, it's, so just a year in review. I mean, let's see. We had we'll call it Vaccine Choice for Parents, Stand Your Ground Enhancement Act, and was sales tax on groceries, I believe. Those are the most popular ones. Never saw the light of day, and that speaks volumes as to as many good things as we can get done in the state. That shows you how much better it can be. All right, for those folks in the KEYK audience, thanks so much for joining me on this episode of the Missouri Liberty Report. And we'll be back next week for more Freedom Talk. Take care. Have a great week. And moving on. I love this board. Hit record again. Bam, bam. Split. So, guys, what else you got on your brain? We got about a half an hour here. So what else you got on your mind as far as year in review? Because I know we deviated, but, I mean, that's just what we do every...
If I could offer up a medical diagnosis.
Sure.
We as a collective nation or whatever have hypogonad.
Uh-oh.
In other words, no balls.
Yeah.
Hypogonad. That's a good one, Trish.
Or if you want to go psychological, we have Stockholm. A lot of people have Stockholm syndrome too.
That's right. And how do we get people to get balls and get out of Stockholm syndrome?
Okay, I can't remember the full saying, Sam and Trish, but I do know that they say that, you know, what is it? Hard times create, you know, hard men, and then hard men create good times, and good times create soft men create hard times, and then hard times create hard men. I think that's the only way I know how to relate what we're in right now. Now, we've always had men with big cojones, or however you want to put it, but they get that the population dwindles until things get so bad that it's right in people's faces, and suddenly, bloop, bloop, they drop, and everybody's like, "Hey, I got my scrote back," and you're like, "Oh, thank God." And then we try to beat this back down. It's unfortunate, but that seems to be the cycle that we go through. And I don't remember where I heard that at, but it was very it's an appropriate way to look at things. As far, and you know, when we're talking about national divorce earlier, and Sam, you brought up how we're fortunate in the fact that we are 50 states. We're supposed to be 50 little republics here, and we give the federal government power. But when talking to people like Daniel Miller from Texas, you know, he always brings up the point. In the last 40, 50 years, more and more countries have been created because they got sick and tired of the situation they were in, and another country was created. So it's not even a USA thing. It's a worldwide phenomenon. When people get sick and tired of nonsense, of living under whatever type of rule they were under, they're like, you know what? Screw this. We'll just make our own thing. I mean, we even got, Idaho is looking to expand their territory and take up more of Oregon, and people on the Oregon side that are more rural, they're like, yeah, Oregon sucks. Yeah, let's just scoot the border of Idaho over. We've even got stuff like that. It might not even be a national divorce, but the border expands in from one state into another, and either way, any way people can get more freedom, I'm fine with, because borders are just arbitrary things set up, right? For the most part, there's an agreement on who's, what state's property ends where. If they can get that worked out, and Idaho gets bigger and there's more freedom lovers in one state, I say go for it.
Well, I will tell you this, and that is the fact that we've got several. You mentioned Idaho expanding. Southern Illinois wants to break off from northern Illinois. They've been wanting to do that for years, to kind of shed Cook County and Springfield over there, because Cook County is the worst. I mean, that's the stranglehold Illinois has around their neck is Chicago. In fact, everybody says the capital is Springfield over there. Really, the capital is Chicago right now in the shape they're in, because it seems like every bad piece of legislation, almost everybody that winds up down there at the Capitol comes out of Chicago. It seems like, as far as people, yeah, as far as evil people getting in positions of power. And so Southern Illinois has been wanting to break off for several years. Then California has had this project of wanting to break off a new state called Jefferson. That's another one that's out there. But those are just some of them that I can think of right off the bat. The one problem that aggravates me with all of this is that you got a lot of people saying, well, it'll probably never happen because they have to get permission from Congress in order to do it. I'm saying, wait a minute, get permission from Congress? Hell, they created the federal government.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to say I'll knock in the middle of next week if you would ask for permission, if you want permission.
Yeah. That's one thing we got to get away from is stop the mindset of having to ask a bureaucrat or an agency permission. That mindset alone. Again, if we want to talk about being free, and we want to brag about being free, a free people. Now, if you're going to ask permission to do something else, to do something on someone else's property, that's one thing. But if you're asking permission to do something on your property, that's a whole nother ball game. If
you're asking for permission for something you could already do because you created the beast, you're barking up the wrong trees. You're not thinking.
Yeah,
and the thing is too, on the other hand, we have to also understand that what we're fighting for here is the liberty and the freedom to do those things, responsible things. I mean, we're not talking about freedom just to do anything, just any old thing we want to. I mean, we have other people that we have to interact with in our lives, and, people have their property rights just like we do and all that kind of stuff. However, having said that, it's getting down to the point now where you have to ask permission to even do those things that you should be able to do responsibly. And I'm saying, wait a minute. First of all, in fact, when I ran for alderman here in this area, one of the first things I told everybody, I said, we need to get rid of this mindset that City Hall is your mommy or your daddy. And we need to get rid of that mindset of all up and down the board, including the federal government as well. And that is, it comes down to a point where we need to quit doing so much Mother May I stuff and get back to living responsibly the way that we should be able to live. Now, the one problem that we have to be careful about in all of this is that one of the things we have to fight is that we do have a sizable amount of people out there who are not responsible. My answer to that is deal with them and leave me alone.
Right. Don't just deal with everybody on a case-by-case basis, not as a collective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Punishing the many for the crimes or the sins of the few is something the government does an awful lot of in this day.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a long time, but now especially, and again, okay, I want to talk about this. I did not get the sound clip, but I think I grabbed the article. I'm pretty sure I bookmarked it because I wanted to get this in real quick. And I'll just read a touch of it because this is something stupid that came out this year.
Okay.
And it's like, oh boy, you're really, really smart.
Really reaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is Marxism in a whole nother level. So this is an article. It was a UN article. And it's actually up at feed.org. And I'm gonna let me copy and paste this and stick it in the live stream so people can look at this article real quick. Okay. UN deletes article titled "The Benefits of World Hunger. Was it real or satire?" So again, you can find this at feed.org. But let me just read. All I have to do is read you the first couple sentences or the first paragraph of the article, and that's I literally think that's all we need to hear. And okay, everybody be prepared. If you got shoes on, put plastic down. You might throw up on your feet. Okay, so we sometimes talk about hunger in the world as if it were a scourge that all of us want to see abolished, viewing it as comparable with the plague or AIDS. But that naive view prevents us from coming to grip with what causes and sustains hunger. Hunger has great positive value to many people. Indeed, it is fundamental to the working of the world's economy. Hungry people are the most productive people, especially where there is a need for manual labor. So, let me get this straight. You're telling me that if I'm hungry, I'm more productive than someone that's well-fed. Hey, that's just completely and utterly ridiculous. But that is a Marxist way of thinking. Because in Marxism, necessarily, because the way the system evolves into this monstrosity, there's a lot of hungry people. I mean, how many times do we see countries go full communist or socialist or whatever, and it's not very long down the road where people are dying of starvation or people are trying to eat the animals in the zoo because they're so hungry, or they're eating their own pets. That's a good thing?
Or each other if it gets bad enough.
Yeah, that's a good thing? I don't... Listen, if you got more than 2 brain cells to rub together, I don't know how you put a positive spin on hunger. The only hunger that I see that would be a positive thing for me is if the government was starving for money and they just started shriveling up and dying and going away and the size and scope of government started to shrink. That's the only positive hunger that I could think of off the top of my head. People in general, human beings, hunger being a positive thing, that's reaching. That's like me standing on the East Coast trying to reach over into Europe with my hand, and my arm is not going to become any longer. Go across that wide span of the ocean to get something from someone in, say, France or Italy. These people are. This guy was really, really reaching, and
Yeah.
I was kind of just like, wow. I didn't think people could be any more ignorant, and then you went and proved me wrong. And just for the listeners out there, if you've never heard, there's a site called Wayback Machine. And you can go on there. You can actually save pages to their archive. But there's a way to look up these articles. That's how some of these people find these articles. They come up and then they get pulled down because I guess people like freak out on them a little bit. Go, oh, it's probably a little much right now, and they yank it. Well, that site, that Wayback Machine captures everything. But I mean, what do you think, guys? I mean, what do you say about that? What do you say about hunger can be a positive thing?
Okay, here's my take on this whole thing, and that is that what we're dealing with is a ruling class that is setting up the public for slavery, and they're trying to justify it. And so they're trying to get the gullible to buy into it. Now, realistically, on the other hand, the truth of that whole story is people are at their worst when they're starving. They can't think straight. They can't concentrate.
They become slaves.
They're diseased.
Automatically.
They're diseased, that kind of thing. Now, there is a window in which you can operate very effectively without food for a certain period of time. That's called fasting. Scripture talks about that. And when you fast, it's you yourself deciding, okay, for a certain amount of time, I'm not going to eat, maybe like 48 hours or so.
It's you as an individual.
It's you as an individual. And what I'm trying to point out is there is a window that you will go through, because Trish and I have done it. We've fasted, where if you stay without food during that time, by about the second day, all of a sudden there's a certain period of time in which your mind becomes very clear. Now, it doesn't last. If you go long enough, then you're going to start feeling weak, and you're going to start feeling, when you start feeling weak and you start feeling puny and you get to a point where...
You start feeling desperate, too.
Yeah. And the other thing that happens when you get hungry enough, this is how riots start all over the place, too. And so, the thing that people have to keep in mind is that what they're talking about is the kind of hunger where you're perpetually hungry all the time. In other words, you get barely just enough to barely keep you alive. Yeah, and that's it. So in other words, to the state there's advantages to hunger, because let me explain to you how the state sees it. When you're hungry and you're weak, you don't have the capacity to fight. And that's really what it boils down to.
That's what they're looking for.
That's what they're really looking at here. When you're weak, you're vulnerable. When you're weak and you're malnourished, you don't have the strength to fight. And so that's what they're banking on. They're banking on the fact that if you're hungry enough, you'll be an eternal slave, because you'll be so hungry, you'll just be grateful for whatever little pittance they give you. And that's what they're looking at. Where in reality, hungry people, not only do they not have the strength to fight, but they're diseased. So that makes for the healthcare system, or the health destruction system, that makes for new jobs for them to just keep pumping drugs into you, just enough to make you coexist, not enough to make you function, worth a damn, but to make you coexist just enough to where they can keep experimenting on you and all kinds of stuff like that. But as far as your will to be able to get anything done, you're screwed, because you don't have the strength.
No.
And so that's really what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a state that would love nothing better than to have a very weak and vulnerable population, because they can control them more effectively. That's what really this article is saying.
Or if you're becoming too much of a drain on a system, we'll manipulate people into thinking that assisted suicide is A-okay.
Yeah,
and they just take you out. Yeah, just take you out.
Yeah,
because you're creating too much of a drain on the system, so you have to go bye-bye. For those younger folks or whatever, or the people with a little more strength than you, they can use them as the labor or the means to do whatever they want to get done. And you're too weak, so you just have to go, because you're just draining the system.
Well, see, look at it this way, John. Look at it this way. That article revealed right there exactly what they want to do.
Well, and remember that article from years ago, World Health Organization, that nutrients are toxic? Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was what? That's probably been 7, 8, 9 years ago that article came out. Because we were all like,
Yeah.
excuse-moi, sir? Nutrients are... And that
Yeah.
was from a doctor working for the World Health Organization. So that's out there too. So again, just like with everything else, it's a slow drip. They stated that case several years ago. Now we're seeing this. It's a slow drip, folks. They don't drop it in on you all at one time. They can't. They have to, because there would be such a reaction from the majority that they could never get it done. So they have to slowly ease you into it and take you across the comfort line a little bit. And then once you get comfortable, they'll pull you across the line again, and they just kind of just gently shove you in the direction that you want to go until it gets too late and there's no more gentle shoving. You're being forced. Force.
Yeah, that's the pot in the boiling water, the frog
Right.
in the boiling pot of water routine is what we're dealing with here.
Well, wilderness gal here got an interesting comment here. It says it's part of why they are promoting veganism. If veganism was healthy, you wouldn't need so many supplements to sustain yourself, stave off depression.
Yeah.
And then Voodoo Queen says those that control the food controls the people. Also true.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
They
she's right.
use food as a weapon. Bertini of the one of those UN type organizations said we use food as a weapon. We do not apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's revolting. But again, I'm just gonna scan through this to see if there's anything else. Okay. So the conventional thinking is that hunger is caused by low-paying jobs. For example, an article reports on Brazil's ethanol slaves, 200,000 migrant sugar cutters who prop up renewable energy boom. While it is true that hunger is caused by low-paying jobs, we need to understand that hunger at the same time causes low-paying jobs to be created. Who would have established massive biofuel production operations in Brazil if they did not know there were thousands of hungry people desperate enough to take the awful jobs they would offer? Who would build any sort of factory if they did not know that many people would be available to take the jobs at low pay rates? Okay, to me, this is ignorant right here. And the reason I say that is because of that, like the book. And I know, Sam and Trish, you know what book I'm talking about. Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Yeah.
That right there,
John Perkins.
that's the cause. Because what the World Bank goes into a company or a country, offers them a loan that they can never pay back, and says, "Oh, we'll give you this money if you do these things." Those factories get created out of that. And then if they find a leader that says, "No, I don't want your money," they just suddenly the people are demanding new leadership, and they get whoever they want in power that will promulgate whatever they want. So to say that that this is brought on by hunger is foolish, because this is meddling by big banks with money to basically bribe leaders in these poor countries to get to those resources. And, power grids, or, petroleum. There's a lot of big companies that are involved in this. And then you got the biofuels, you got, food industry, any big, huge industry that you can think of that can't seem to get a country to cooperate, the world banks come in. And, you have two choices. You take the money, you take a loan that you'll never pay off, or you'll lose your seat of power because you choose, maybe, just maybe, that leader's like, well, I'd rather keep a little more of our sovereignty and not have all these outside forces coming in, directing us in a different place. And the World Bank's like, well, I guess you just won't be in power anymore. We'll have a military-style coup, or a coup by the citizenship or whatever, and we'll displace you and put someone else in your place who is much more willing to work with us
Yeah,
and
play
then
the game.
the people will suffer. You know, like when Ron Paul talked about sending money to these countries, when he talked about it, he said, yeah, we send money to these countries, but here's the thing. They buy weapons and they buy all these things for their armies, for whatever. The people don't
It's
get
for the
any of it.
government.
Right. The people don't
For the government.
get any of it. Same way with this World Bank comes in and does this. It is for the leaders. It's nothing for the people. Yeah, you might give them these measly jobs that don't pay them anything. And they effectively, like Trish said a while ago, turn them into slaves. Because they don't, since it's not someone rooted in that country who has maybe actually good intentions and wants to bring wealth to the people. They're not trying to bring wealth to the people. They're trying to bring wealth to themselves, and the leaders
We have
get a
come
chunk.
full circle.
Yeah,
Everything government touches turns to crap.
yeah. It's quite as dumb as it is and as ignorant as it is to sit here and look at this. It's also interesting because it gives you great insight.
Yeah.
So at the end of this article, for those of us at the high end of the social ladder, ending world hunger globally would be a disaster. If there were no hunger in the world, who would plow the fields? Who would harvest our vegetables? Who would work in the rendering plants? Who would clean our toilets? We would have to produce our own food and clean our own toilets. No wonder people at the high end are not rushing to solve the hunger problem. For many of us, hunger is not a problem, but an asset. Now,
I'm tired of the Marxist guilt trip. That's not at all. I want to clean my toilet because it's for me,
yeah, and I want to.
not for anybody else.
Yeah, and I want to grow my own food because at least I know where the food came from. You know,
That's right.
if that's if you have a garden, you know where the food came from. You know how you took care of it. You know how you grow. You know if you did or did not put pesticides. You know anything.
Yep.
You know exactly what went into that food. And so you know if you trust yourself, then you know, like, oh yeah, well I grew that. Them's my taters or them's my tomatoes or whatever.
Yep.
So it's that I heard that on Good Morning Liberty and I was just like, what? That was first thing I thought of was, well, you hear dumb stuff all the time, but
Yeah, you have to read between the lines.
yeah.
And everything is opposite.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it
everything is total opposite of, up is down, down is up. I always tell people, if you think in opposites, you'll have these people figured out.
And you can't reason with them. You cannot.
No, that's why they used to say back in the 50s and 60s, they used to always say the only good communist is a dead communist.
Yeah.
That's why they used to say that, because you can't reason with
You
them.
can't reason with them.
Yeah, I need to put that
They're
sticker.
lost.
I need to put that sticker that I've got up on my wall behind me. I've ordered shirts a few times from Gadsden and Culpeper.com, and every time I order a shirt for them, they send me a sticker. And the last one, I don't remember what stickers I got, or what shirts I got, but the sticker that I got, it literally shows like an arm, flexing its muscle with a tattoo that says "Mom" on it. And then around the outside says "Killikami for Mommy." And I just got a big kick out of that. I need to just put that up on my wall behind me so it's visible for everybody. I've got it around here somewhere. I've got to put that sticker up. I'm just, as slowly but surely as I get these funny little things that I can put on my wall, I'm definitely going to stick that one up there. And there's like this whole wall behind me is just going to be filled with all kinds of neat things like that. That just anybody can look at and go, oh, what the heck does that say? But I'm going to have to get them made a little bigger. But anyway, that's fine and dandy. But it is interesting. If folks out there listening have never gone to Gadsden and Culpeper, this is not a paid advertisement, but I have to tell you this. I've gotten 5-6 shirts from them. they've all lasted a long time. They're not thin, flimsy material. They're really nice. They're heavy-duty material, and they don't shrink up real bad or anything. I've got some from, God, 5-6 years ago that still fit. Now, they got some holes in it from work, but that's not the shirt's fault. That's my fault. But, yeah, and the shirts are normally I pay $10, $12. I've paid $10. I've paid $11. I've paid $12 for a T-shirt. They're not crappy material. They're not poor quality. And then, yeah, they always send you, like, they send you great stickers that you can slap on a car window. Or the last time I ordered from them, or the first time I ordered from them, I got this really cool sticker that went on the side window of my car, and it showed the United States map, but then it had the Gadsden snake on it, and it said, oh, good Lord, something the anger. But basically saying y'all need to get angry again, like that righteous anger, and take things back.
Yeah.
But it was a great sticker. I had a lot of people like, oh, that's really. In fact, I got that on a T-shirt too because I liked the sticker so much. I ended up buying a T-shirt. And someone's asking if I sell Missouri Liberty Report shirts, and I do not. Sorry.
Not at this time, anyway. Who knows down the road what you may be doing? Because, John, remember half the stuff you're doing now you didn't know you was going to be doing.
Well, and that's the thing.
That reminds me of I knew a guy that went to my school, and he dressed up his cane in sweetmeat stickers.
Oh yeah,
You know
from KC95. Yes, I do.
Yeah. he had that cane from tip to crook, practically dressed up in Casey stickers.
Somebody at work, we were doing a major cleanup at work, and somebody found an old pin, KC pin, but it said something. I don't know if it was John. What was his name? John or was it John Ulich? Yeah, it's something. Ulich on it, and it said something about, but it had John on there, and somebody's like, "Hey, do you want this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And I'm thinking, man, I bet this pen is old. Like, it's an older pen. I snatched it right up and brought it home with me. I'm like, I'm taking that home with me. I will tell everybody this. So at Christmas at my wife's grandmother's house, a friend of her family has what they call a cricket, and it cuts out like vinyl decals. Because I made a homemade cup. She's able to do it with the cricket with color, and you can put it on the cup, and it sticks very well. And it looks like it's painted on there. And I told my wife, I was like, we're coming up with a logo. I'm going to have her print several of those. I'm going to put them on some of those other cups that I ordered. I got 8 cups for like $50. And they're 30-ounce cups. And I'm going to have her make those stickers. I'm going to put them on the cup, apply them. I may have to put a coat of poly on them to protect it. And then some of those will be for sale at like future meetings or something like that I go to. I may try to sell a few. Because, I mean, I got, and that's a great thing. I won't have to sell them for a lot because I literally got, not even $8 in the cup. Like $6 and some change. And the nice thing is they come with the stainless steel straws and the straw brush. So eight of them for $50 was hard to pass up. Just so anybody out there knows, maybe in the future I'll have some Missouri Liberty Report cups that I want to sell. But yes, at some point I will do some T-shirts. But first I have to design a minimalized logo because I don't want anything super big and awkward. Something fancy, but on the back, I already talked to Sam and Trish about this. On the back, so it'll have Missouri Liberty Report on the front. It'll also have MO Liberty Radio on the front, but on the back, it's going to have Trish's catchphrase: "Everything government touches turns to crap." That's going to be the T-shirt that I want to put out there. So I'll have my podcast name, their network name, because I have to. They were the first ones to give me a shot. I have to. And then it'll have Trish's catch saying on the back, and that'll be I'm going to predict now that that will be a well sought after shirt once those things are done. because people are going to be like, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Give me some of that government crap T-shirt. That's what we'll call it, government crap T-shirt. They'll be of good quality, but the message will just tell you the government is just awfulness in a big can. Well, Sam and Trish, I greatly appreciate you joining me this week. This is weird that we're cutting it off in an hour and a half, but unfortunately I have other things to do this evening. I do appreciate you adjusting your schedule for me and coming on earlier today. That helped me out a lot because I don't want to take any weeks off. I want to keep rolling. Sam, what kind of show are you running a show this week, or are you doing a replay?
Yes, I am. We're going to comment a little bit on some of the stuff that's gone on over the year and some stuff coming up. But I've got an interview I'm going to play. That's the one I mentioned to you earlier regarding
oh, yes,
the lady, Catherine Austin Fitts, who used to be Secretary of Housing during the Bush administration. And she is saying the same thing we're all saying out here as far as getting involved in your states. There's a lot of interesting stuff that came out of that interview, one regarding the gold and silver issue, and which is, of course, something that we're looking to do here in the state of Missouri as well. But that interview was quite revealing. It was a very good interview, and I figured it would be good for people to hear. So I'm going to take some time and play that. It's going to run probably about 40 minutes. And then we'll just comment on stuff during the rest of the time, maybe take a call or two or something, who knows. But there's certainly enough stuff to keep us busy on that show. And then next week, I'm not sure yet. I sent off an email to Michelle Latham on the issue of getting Missouri out of the World Economic Forum. I did send her off an email. And I'm waiting to hear back from her if next week would be a good date for her to come on. And then on the 15th, Tom Martz is he's scheduled, at least tentatively scheduled. I got to firm it up with him, but he's going to be on. We're going to discuss things, the whole issue of the Missouri State Constitution and stuff like that, just constitutional conversation in general. So that's coming up, and then Lord knows where it's going to go after that. It could be anybody's guess, but and I have to thank you and Patrick for getting a lot of that stuff going. So appreciate it.
Yeah, and I've got Tom locked up for the 20th. I've got a guy by the name of Darren. What is it? Darren Chappelle. On the 27th, he is Tom speaks very highly of him. He's a new House or a new Missouri rep. Just this will be his first term, I believe. And on the 13th, I got Robert Brown. Next month for we're gonna dive deep into nullification because I think that's a good topic to discuss. So yeah, Robert, and then Tom, and then Darren. And I'm just going to try to keep the interviews going. I've got to try to get Tony Lavasco back on. I've got to try to get some of these reps on to talk about their mission goals for this legislative session, things they'd like to try to get done this coming session, so things like that. But anyway, and Sam, give everybody time, date, or time, day, every time, or every – oh, my God. When you do your show, the time you do your show, if I could talk.
Okay, assuming everybody listening and watching the live stream is here in the state of Missouri, 7 p.m. Central Time, and the address is simply www.mo as in Missouri, Liberty Radio, all lowercase, mo Liberty Radio. .us. So that's www.mo Liberty Radio, all squished together, and then .us. And there's a player right there on the front page. You just click on that, and bada boom, bada bang, you'll have a signal.
There you go. Yeah, it's folks, don't miss it. It's a good show. It's always a good show. Lots of information every Sunday night, just about every Sunday night, 7 to 9, off the cuff radio with Sam and Trish Britton. Well, Sam and Trish, I'm going to hang up with you now and get things rolling, but I really, really greatly appreciate you taking time out for me early on, kind of a early notice or early time, but I greatly appreciate everything you guys have done for me. You've been a great help, and look forward to continue working with you.
You've done plenty for for us too, and like setting up my new machine.
We're all helping each other here.
Thank you very much for that.
Hey, not a problem.
Yeah.
I owe you guys a lot, so it is my pleasure. And again, folks, if you want to know, if you haven't, if you're kind of listening to me for the first time, these are the folks that turned my world around and turned my view on a lot of things around and got me to do an about face. And kind of got me started down this path. So these are the two individuals who were responsible for me being a rebel now. So you got these two to thank for it.
Welcome to the other side.
That's right. Welcome to the dark side. We have cookies. So anyway, well, Sam and Trish, great to talk to you as always. Maybe, hopefully, I should be able to listen in on Saturday night. And I look forward to speaking to you.
Night?
Or Sunday night. Good Lord. Sunday night on your show, duh. See, still not operating at 100% capacity. But yeah, I look forward to talking to you guys again here pretty soon. And have a great weekend and have a happy New Year.
All right, same to you, John. Thank you, and God bless everybody out there on the live stream. May liberty ring throughout the land.
All right, you guys take care, and we'll talk to you later.
You bet.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right, folks, that was Sam and Trish Britton from MOLibertyRadio.us. Want to thank Wilderness Gal, Gary Ride, Grant, Dark Helmet, Guitar Authority, John Doe. Who else am I think? Agorizer, Voodoo Queen. A lot of names that I don't think I've ever seen in here before. So that's really cool. I'm glad, even on an early schedule, that you all were able to join in with me on the live stream today, and get your comments and questions in as well. Always appreciate it. So anyway, with that, that's going to do it for this edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. And Missouri Freedom Initiative live stream tomorrow night on Odyssey. Don't forget to look for that. If you go in the description of this YouTube video, you will find the channel link to the Missouri Freedom Initiative and MOLibertyRadio.us. Also, my Odyssey channel's down there. Don't forget, if I could point the right way. Don't forget about our sponsor, SlapHappyBeverage.com. The link to their site is also in the description. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I don't know if Patrick's joining me. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. We'll see y'all next week.
Want more freedom? It starts with you. Join us next week on the Missouri Liberty Report and find out how you can get involved to take back your state.
All right, folks. Yeah, I appreciate you. I didn't think I'd have anybody in here doing this at 2 o'clock today, so appreciate y'all. Yeah, I've sent. It's fine. No, I'm just talking to live stream. Let her bark. She's gonna be a butthead. I've sent Patrick some texts and I haven't heard anything out of him. I don't know what's going on. I've sent him a couple texts and he hasn't responded. So I guess he's coming on next week. I don't know. If not, if I don't hear anything, then I'll find a different guest. I guess, or I'll just be on here by myself. I don't know. I know it's hectic this time of year, so who knows? But, yeah. Anyway, folks, I'm really glad to see all of you joined in at this. I figured, I was like, nobody's going to be in a live stream, and then they'll all watch later. And I'm really happy to see you all here. So, anyway, guys, I haven't made up my mind. I did this, and now I'm like, I got a holiday dinner tonight that I'm supposed to be going to, but some part of me is just like, oh, let's just stay home and say screw that. And other parts of me are like, well, you bought the tickets, you should go. So we'll find out I'll find out later which one I'm doing. But anyway, thanks again. Hey, you, come here. Come here, you. Come here. Ugh. Sorry.
this thing here was making a bunch of racket. Trying to. She's very well behaved during the whole show because she slept. And now look at her. She wants to get into trouble. Look at her. She's too cute. She knows it. Anyway. Folks, that's going to do it. I'm running on fumes right now. So thanks. Wilderness Gal, if you're going to be there on the 11th and you have some seeds for me, yeah, that's fine. I will, yeah, Grant, if you want to step in on a show, listen, I'm serious. There might come a point, because some of you are so active in the Missouri Freedom Initiative, and not just in that, but just doing your own thing, that at some point I'd like to think about, even if we do like a, conference call, having some of you folks on and we just do a show and each of you can kind of give a story about going to the Capitol or anything like that. That's something I want to look at in the future. So like Grant and Gary and Voodoo Queen and some of these others that have been at this a while, to kind of give your story on how you've participated and things you've seen or things that you've done. I think it's important that we get that information out to folks who are looking to maybe get involved in our state or their state, whichever. I think that would be a pretty cool thing to do. But I will start getting in contact with you guys. Maybe in February we can do that. I can set aside a Friday night that's good for some folks, and we can just have ourselves a nice little party chat. We'll make a show out of it, but everybody can kind of talk, give their thoughts about, the Missouri Freedom Initiative and legislation in the state, and a little bit of their story, and do things like that. So anyway, folks, I've gone on long enough. I've got to make up my mind what I'm going to do this evening. So thanks to all of you again for being here early in the day, and I'll see you all next Friday right here on the Missouri Liberty Report. Take care, everybody, and Happy New Year.